Hello and welcome back to the Blizzard Arena here in Burbank, California. My name is Kevin Michael Johnson, and we have one more match to go here in Group A for the HGC Finals. We just saw Tempo Storm send the Deadly Kittens, the team from Southeast Asia, packing. Our first team falls from the tournament. However, Tempo Storm now has to go up against an opponent they fell to earlier today in a 2-0 victory. Can they hold it off against the team from China? Let's head on over to the analyst desk and hear what they think.
That's right. Thank you very much, Kevin. Back to official duties for me. The chain's back on. I'm back on the desk here as we continue things on the final series coming up in just a few moments' time. Tempo Storm going up against CE once again, but overall, Tempo Storm bringing out the Kerrigan and Kel'Thuzad to round that out. Kaldor, that was pretty impressive.
It was really well played, especially Psalm's performance on last map was absolutely stellar. It was really well done there. So I was pretty impressed by it, and I'm curious to see what they have now up their sleeves for the last match, since they already said this is the one that really matters for them compared to the earlier series against CE.
A really good point, because do they now go down the path of, like, we have more pocket picks, etc.? That could be a thing, Skimmy.
I mean, that's what Sam was saying in his interview, right? We don't want to reveal too much in that first series because we know we're going to go up against them again. So why just put all our strats to try and get out in the first stage? We might as well just save them for this do or die situation. I mean, I feel as if there were a few moments during that series against Deadly Kittens where the whole of NA were like, my heart is racing. What is Sam doing? And he pulls it off. I was a bit concerned about the Kerrigan, but they get the snowball lead, which you need with an all melee comp. Yeah, and it works.
Let's check in with the bracket before we check in with Wolf as well. Not forgotten about you, my friend, as we take a look at what's gone down so far. MVP Black, at the moment, has advanced on quite convincingly, to say the least. And now we have our rematch, CE versus Tempo Storm. Wolf, if history is to be a determining factor, sometimes we see the
the repeat occurs here, and it's a different Tempo Storm. Obviously, we saw a different Tempo Storm against Deadly Kittens, but I think part of the reason why that worked so well was because it was very much a surprise factor, right? The picks were placed at the end. They were very intelligent in terms of how they wanted to draft it, and that surprise factor is now gone. So either you have to go back to how you played in the first series, where you lost 0-2, or you have to hope that CE also struggles against this more unusual style. So I'm a little bit worried for North America here.
The one thing that I want to really point out is that when we're talking about our current system, that strategy is going into these groups is incredibly important, and is oftentimes something that is forgotten about at the start. So if you have a clear favorite like MVP Black, every one of the teams already has to assess for themselves, do we have a chance of beating them without showing everything? Because if you're a team that actually has a chance to go to the finals at BlizzCon, you want to hide as much as you possibly can. And then you have to judge, okay, what do we have to invest to make a first seed happen in our group? Do we have the tools at this point? Or are we okay qualifying a second? And then you end up in that situation that Sam was talking about. Do we show everything in our first match and come out guns blazing? Or do we try to, for potential third map, hold a few things back? So we could really still see them with a few pocket strategies. Wolf talked about that they showed some already. The question remains, have they more up their sleeves? Because this is the moment where you have to show it. This is the match, the second for them, that really matters. If you lose here, you're out.
Yeah, I think for Tempo Storm, you think about the history of this team when they made a name for themselves as Murloc Geniuses, eventually then picked up by Astral Authority. I think they're one of the last old guards of North America. The other two North American teams here are kind of new era. And I think that making it to BlizzCon, if it means you have to use your strategies here, you might not perform well at BlizzCon. You've got some time. I think you have to use everything you've got. You've got to use your last trump card here in this best of 3.
Well, let's focus on CE, because obviously they're a team that has beaten them 2-0 just today, but also going up against MVP Black. They were defeated 2-0, Skimmy, but it didn't look all hopes lost. There were still some moments there where CE looked strong.
I mean, there were moments of hope, really, I suppose you could say, but it just seemed a bit like they never really got off to the flying start thereafter. It was almost a case of turtle, potentially even a case of overthinking during the draft, of saying we need to try and outdraft MVP Black, which is extremely hard to do. I mean, MVP Black, traditionally speaking, have been one of those teams that value it and are one of the best to try and lead that front, but they tried to go for the globals. We know that's not what they're strong at. I'd love to see them just go back to basics and allow them to get that 2-0 like last time.
We saw a great focus on the supports from them as well, from CE. We saw things like that Lucio Rhaegar really come into play and be really strong.
Yeah, one of the things that I feel really distinguishes also CE from the previous opponent they had, the Deadly Kittens, is that with CE, with every single draft that we have, I feel there's a clear idea of what you're trying to execute. And usually the thought process. Everybody is on the same page in the fights. Then it's a question, is our opponent stronger than us or weaker? And in the case against MVP Black, you could just say that execution was better on the side of the Koreans. But for example, as much as the Kittens have improved, there were still mistakes that were made. As for example, we've been talking a lot about the way that Lava Wave was used. You can argue if that's the better ult, but if you use it, there's several ways of how you can approach it to get max value. And they never really got that. So they had a little bit of asymmetry going into a lot of these fights. And I don't think that CE is going to make those same mistakes. So this is going to make it a lot tougher for Tempo Storm to get a victory.
I think that CE's focus on the supports is really intelligent because they've got two great support players, of course, in the double support meta, moving this player into the support role. And Lokhtar is not really disappointing on DPS. So if you draft support early and try to find the right DPS, I think that's the goal. And I think that's why they tried the Zul'jin. And I think it was a really cool experiment. Will they use that in this best of 3? I don't think so. But I think for Tempo Storm, they should focus on the fact that CE has already shown that supports are their mains.
Well, let's focus on Tempo Storm, of course, because I want to ask you guys, if you've been watching them throughout the day, what can Tempo Storm derive from what they played against when it came to CE? Because obviously, as you said, their supports were a big factor, but Lokhtar, as a DPS, was actually quite strong as well. Skimmy, your thoughts?
I mean, for me personally, I've seen Tempo Storm, they seem to have this really big love for Malthael. It seems to be either first picked or always guaranteed alongside the ETC, which, I mean, it's a fantastic pairing, as we've coined it, the circle squad of Moshpit as well as Tormented Souls. Yeah, it works well, but it seems a little bit one-dimensional so far. Yes, you can make the argument that they're not trying to show too much. They want to run a standard comp and try and get through with comfort picks. But as you mentioned, this is do or die right now. They can't allow anything to go through. They need to get through to Anaheim. And because they plan the first day, I mean, something to consider is they'll have the rest of the week to prep as a result of watching the rest of the groups.
Yeah, I think that if you want to go back to the Malthael, it's risky because it certainly didn't work last time, right? And I think in that best of 3, they probably learned this isn't going to work against Deadly Kittens, which is a totally different type of team that they clearly prepared for. They did something a little bit different. So, yeah, I think if you have a new strat, use it. Otherwise, try to play around the strengths of CE.
All right, well, let's check in with the cheers, see what's happening so far on our global progress. 25,735,000. Oh, no, it moved. I can't even continue. As you guys keep cheering at home, make sure to keep those rolling in for your favorite teams here, especially Tempo Storm or CE, as it could be their last opportunity here in the entirety of it, moving on to BlizzCon. Great system.
I actually feel that this is really the question that everyone had looking at the group. Is CE going to make it out? Is it going to be Tempo Storm?
Yeah.
Right now, even without looking at the first result, I actually would definitely still favor CE since I felt they were a lot stronger and more cohesive in the way that they present themselves, whereas Tempo Storm still struggled a bit. So Tempo has said we have a little bit more up our sleeves. I'm curious. I loved the Kerrigan. I think it was great.
Absolutely.
I loved also how with Kerrigan they changed up their playstyle. They became way more aggressive as they needed to with Kerrigan. So if they have a few more of these things in pedo for their opponent now, that could be a cool series. But overall, CE looked stronger.
And it felt like some of that fire from the past international events for Tempo Storm in the aggressive flair wasn't there until just now when we saw those games. So indeed, it's a very interesting thing to consider. Let's check in where we're going to be going for the battleground here for game at number 1, and it will be Warhead Junction.
All right.
Wow. Okay, I like that.
Well, they're already trying something different again. I mean, I think you really do have to do this. Basically play every strategy you've got now, because again, as Calder just mentioned, you're going to have time between now and BlizzCon proper. So if you get through this group, especially because this is the first day, you have so much time to prepare new strategies. And I think, you know, what they show us here is, I'm excited to see it. Whether it'll work or not leaves, you know, we still have question marks there, but excited to see what they want to draft on this one.
I think a crucial area to discuss would be the fact of, does Abathur get through? Do Tempo Storm actually get to take Abathur on their side? Fantastic for the map. They want to play the global game. They like to play that defensive style, and you can bet your bottom dollar that CE want to force that fight, potentially the likes of an Illidan, or in this case, taking Dahaka straight away off.
Let's do it then. It's going to be the final series of the day. CE goes up against Tempo Storm into the draft. Let's go, Keldor.
Well, as we're talking about bans here, I just want to come back quickly to something that Wolf just said, because I want to stress that for our viewers back home. He said that after the day, you have a lot more time to prepare for like future opponents. The same is also true for the teams that are currently not playing. A lot of them have been starting scrimming at 9 o'clock in the morning and have a scrim schedule until 9 o'clock in the evening, because they are trying to just find the best meta hybrids between what the Chinese teams bring to the table, what the Korean teams are currently using, and the Europeans. So whatever happens in the group stage right now, it's going to be a completely different ball game in Anaheim at BlizzCon itself. And that is going to happen for the teams that play today, that will then adjust, and also for the teams that are currently watching this, trying to mirror that onto their own scrims and then see where do we have to adjust to make it even better.
And it's really cool that you make this point, because as Tempo Storm, if they can claw their way out of this best of 3, it's almost like you're throwing 2 curveballs, because you may cause the teams that are preparing for you for the future think this is how you're going to play later, and then you don't play like this.
All the pros that are playing right now in scrims have on another monitor the stream,
yes,
and
they do.
Every single time they die, every single time they are in draft, they're flipping over, checking what happens, just to get a bit of an idea. What do the other teams actually play in the tournament compared to what they used against the scrim? So just a bit of the mind games that we have for all the viewers at home, what's currently happening behind the scenes. In our game here on hand now, on the other hand, we have first pick on Brightwing, so already emphasizing the global and also the support for CE, as you pointed out, Colaris.
Yeah.
And then Oriel with double support, already shown here by Tempo Storm. Not sure if that doesn't even worry me a little bit.
Yeah?
I'm usually not a biggest fan of the Valor Oriole on a big map like this. Usually I'm more opting for the sort of the macro gameplay, the idea of just taking camps, securing strong skirmishes so you can gather those nukes. We've seen past again, fights break out, you go for those big strong pushes on those side lanes, you try and get a fault, you try and get a keep, you're trying to establish a lead pre-10.
Now overall I like Oriel Vala. I mean, it's obviously an insanely good comp. It just feels a bit too cookie cutter clean for me right now. So I'm wondering what is going to be the spicy kicker here that makes this crazy comp.
Yeah, because you have to somehow now respond to the fact that Brightwing is going to be able to split push, split soak, whatever, what have you, teleport in. So the control of the objective is definitely in the hands of CE right now in terms of forced team fights that need to happen. That's the edge that Tempo Storm has currently, but what will they bring to the table that's going to really affect this global? And right now we don't know.
Now there's 2 things that I could see. One is that you're trying to play basically what Fnatic has done at the mid-season brawl, and you're trying to push completely heavily with a 4-man, and you're trying to get value with that, while another hero is attempting to soak as much experience on the remaining 2 lanes. And with Vala as a first pick, another approach that you could take is that you are focusing heavily on boss control, and you're trying to take the camps here. Boss on this map is easily taken and insanely strong with a good push, so that might be something that Tempo Storm is going to attempt to do to get early momentum.
What I'm looking at here, though, with the idea of them going for the Tracer as well as the Dassiter, you've got the idea of, hey, phase shift can come in from Brightwing as well. That's a double shield. That's the ability to almost play, as you were discussing off air before, with the Genji. He swift strikes in. You've got the Emerald Wind as well as the shield on top. And, Tracer, Elufalo, he went for the untouchable. He wants to go for those kills. So a lot of protection for him.
As much as they banned Garrosh, what do you think about the kicker being Medivh?
Could be. What I think, I want to point out that this Zarya ban, it's obviously quite unusual in Asia to see this type of ban. This means that CE is going back towards that thought process that Kauder was talking about, hard pushing, having the protection for Pala. Very strong pusher is Zarya in the early game especially, so just ignoring the global and just forcing the global to come to you. I think that's a really smart ban. We are going to see Sonya committed to as the solo now. They pick up the Muradin. I'm still really favoring CE, though. They have Tracer, Tastar, Brightwing, a very strong comp for the reasons Skimmy was just describing. And now that Tempo Storm has kind of shown a lot more here, they can just respond at the end of the day. Johanna is still a possibility here, against the Vala, obviously.
I'm still not too sold on this Johanna idea. I'm looking at Tempo Storm right now as their 5th and final pick. Abathur still screams at me. It's got this far through. I thought it was going to be such an influential pick on this. And it would allow them to then keep up with that global rotation that Brightwing is going to add on the side of CE. The final 2 picks, as you say, though, Johanna, it's an idea. They've run it before against MVP Black earlier today.
What about ETC?
Strong possibility. Yeah, the thing is, there's a lot of interrupt on the side of Tempo Storm, though. A lot. So Mosh Pit not going to be really a big factor. I like the Johanna and Illidan. So an extra pseudo-global with the Hunt and a strong solo lane there against Sonya. So I really am liking where CE is taking this.
Me too, and I'm really surprised by Tempo Storm. We have a Lily. Now, this is not as insane as it might seem on first glance, since they have also played that in the past, but they picked the map, right? I'm not crazy here.
They did
I've
pick
seen
the
that
map.
right.
Yeah,
so
that's correct.
For for Warhead, just looking at this, I expected something a little bit more crazy. Yes, you have Walla, you can go for camp control, you can try to play around the boss, but your opponent is now currently drafting something with several globals, heavy dive, very heavy mobility as well. So I'm a little bit worried for Tempo Storm. I expected something that is a little bit more spicy than a very traditional hybrid, double support hyper carry.
Do you feel that they were going down that path until they saw the Illidan and they were like, okay, maybe we need some blinds? Because they never went into that situation thinking, Lili's our last pick, guys, let's go.
I feel the pick was too fast.
I feel like they didn't get what they wanted here, and then they felt like we need to counter the Illidan, then I guess the map doesn't matter, and if we counter this comp, we can beat it, but I still think with the double pseudo global they have here, the lack of globals, and really the lack of solid interrupts in terms of channeling here for this team, I think they're going to struggle on their map pick.
But again, what do you pick on the last pick if you don't pick Lili? You still pick a different support, right?
Yeah. I mean, Lucio, I think, would have been a better choice to at least have some more mobility, some more movement. Rhaegar, also a good option for that sense. He can also roam the map. What do you guys think? I mean, it's a tough question.
I feel that even with another support, you might have changed the draft a little bit, but I still think the main core and the main idea of the draft would remain the same. So it's not a bad draft per se. It's just I feel CE got much better picks, and it's not what I expected when I saw, hey, Tempo Storm just picked Warhead.
It feels like the Illidan really gains a lot of power based off of the draft originally, because when you see the Brightwing Tassadar Tracer come into play, the Illidan's kind of an afterthought at that point. You think they've got their target for the Tassadar shields. The Brightwing's there just because it's Warhead, etc. But having the Brightwing there to just kind of enable everything as well is very strong.
I mean, opening it up like that allows them to go for the Tracer, arguably a big counter with the Polymorph. Same thing for Illidan as well. Illidan's really full on that in terms of Sonya and Malthael reaching that high potential, Dahaka to a degree, even Ragnaros to some extent. But, you know, I thought this would be their map. This would be their go-to.
Right.
And I thought they're going to play, you know, a quite aggressive style.
Did we just have two Wallas in there?
Did that happen?
I saw that. I just wanted to ignore it, right?
I mean, I know you like Valor, but two might be a bit too much.
Yeah, exactly. Am I seeing double? I don't know.
I think that what we see with this comp for Tempo Storm is just a map choice and a strategy gone wrong, gone improper. I think it can still work, certainly, but I don't think this is like a 6 strat for them. This is them just trying to counter their opponent's strategy.
The only reason I really had an argument for the Abathur would have been the fact that we've seen in North America they run the Mule. You know that you know, China want to come at you with aggression, force team fights, try and snowball that takedown structures. If you do play that slow momentum game, that could have patched things up, especially with the shielding build as well to act as that hybrid support, so to speak. But I think Illidan really was the throw.
All right, thank you very much, guys. As we're ready to go into game number 1 even, I should say, Warhead Junction. Let's head over to our commentary team of Grubby and Gillyweed to find out who's moving on through this series.
Hello, everyone. Do you want to do the intro, or shall I do the intro?
I think you should do the intro.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to game number 1, indeed, Kalaris. Here we are. This is the final chance here for Tempo Storm, final chance for CE. They're both 1-1 in the group, and it's Warhead Junction.
Warhead Junction. Tempo Storm has brought us back to Warhead again. It started to fall out of favor for them a little bit in part 2, but they're pulling out all the stops just to try to get through this group stage and make it to the top 8.
And I think it's a very interesting clashing of styles. On the one hand, you have Brightwing and Illidan with the pseudo globals, but and Tassadar Tracer, very strong rotations, right? But on the other hand, you have a team that, if Illidan was first picked here, I would choose those 5 heroes to counter him. Sonya, Muradin, Lili, Ariel with the blinds, Vala very mobile, Hungering Arrow. So I really like the team fighting potential here for Tempo Storm.
Right, you are. Let's get into it. Game 1 is ready. This is still a best of 3, one final best of 3 to determine who moves on along with MVP Black to the round of 8 of the HGC Finals.
And as we load into that, we see that the blue team here on the left, CE, is going to be starting here on the left.
It is CE. They've got KTY playing Brightwing Paradise on Illidan. We've got Wind playing Johanna. Alufu will be back on Tracer, normally the support player there, but he will be rocking it out on Tracer. And finally, Tassadar played by Lokhtar.
And then on the right side, in the red, it's going to be Tempo Storm with June on Ariel, Fury on Muradin, of course. Cottonlock is going to be on Lili. Psalm on Vala, and then finally to round things out, Caterpillar on Sonya.
So I love what you said about a clash of styles, because there is even just a theory for both teams that it's going to be different as we approach this game. Tempo Storm and North America in general like to approach Warhead Junction with just trying to take out a lane, do a lot of lane damage right away, and then transition that into an early boss. And they have the Hungering Arrow build for Vala to try to do that and get those early bosses. Generally, that has not been the style for Chinese teams on Warhead Junction, at least not the ones that I've seen in my study for this. It's been a lot more about just trying to open up the map. And for CE, trying to have an open map for Tracer, for Illidan to run around and try to get picks wherever they want to go, that'll be key.
Exactly, it's so good that you mentioned that, because CE wants exactly that. When you can't run away from Tracer and Illidan back to your defensive gates, your ramparts, that is not a good thing. Tempo Storm would rather have infinity teamfights, despite the considerable size of the map, rather than doing a kind of split push. We push top, you push bot. So CE so far have the better luck of the draw, choosing bot lane to attack, and they're getting a lot more structural damage in than Tempo Storm so far.
The first of many pull spawns goes out, weakens Fury a little bit. CE continuing that push in the mid lane, just trying to clear out as many towers as they can. And now the rotation has started to come in. This needs to be communicated to Tempo Storm in the bottom lane in time so they can back off, and it is. Psalm and June get back to the gates.
Now, soon enough, there will be a spawning of the objective. The nuclear warheads, two pieces. They're either mid and top, or bottom and mid. Here we have the middle and bottom nuke spawn. It's a little bit random where they spawn, but there's always two in the first phase, and the second phase has 4. Let's see how the teams play it out. Johanna is still top here. Win for CE still remaining there, getting experience advantage. Meantime, everyone is going bottom lane here for CE, trying to clinch that bottom nuke, giving away the middle one.
Yeah, there will be a 1-for-1 trade on the nuke. CE's already done damage to the towers, taking them down, so maybe just trying to move up and drop this down. One thing, when I was watching SBT play on this Battleground, is they were very liberal with their nukes. That's not something that Tempo Storm does, so I'm waiting to see how often CE uses nukes. Using them on structures where you might just be able to go in later on with a mercenary camp and be able to get a push, that's not ideal. Tempo wants to hoard their nukes as best they can and use them on things like keeps and, of course, the core.
And that's a higher risk and higher reward play.
True.
Holding on to nukes means you could lose them. They could fall into the hands of your opponent, but holding them on can gain greater value. In Hero League, you'll often nuke exactly in the middle between the opponent's gate and frontal fort, getting nearly the 2 towers down, which is an easy value play, but it is fairly low value. The center of nuke has double damage, and you'll be entirely missing out on that if you play it that way. Of course, in competitive play, you can afford to be more greedy, because there's going to be less random stuff happening. Thus, holding on to them, you can take some serious fort damage in your opponent's forts. Very early boss attempt here by Tempo Storm, but it gets sniffed out immediately by Paradise.
Yeah, this is extremely early for Tempo Storm. Haven't even brought down the fort in the top. It's been sniffed out, but all CE are doing are using this time and this dedication of resources for Tempo Storm to push in the bottom. They use their nuke. They're working on taking out that first fort of the game.
So there's only 2 members available here for CE. They're definitely not going to try and contest it. And like you said, they take down the bottom fort. They used 1 nuke for it. And they did the rest with the Hellbat pressure and the minion wave. Now, let's fast forward and see what this nuke, what this boss is going to be getting. It's a pretty early game boss, so it's fairly weak. If you don't push alongside with it, it'll do almost nothing. But the thing is, they are pushing alongside with it, with all 5 members.
Yeah, they need to make sure that they can even out the structural damage, but it's the benefit of the global for CE already coming into play by having that Brightwing still pushing in the bottom lane. We're looking at nearly a level advantage for CE.
Yeah, but keep in mind, this is the map choice for Tempo Storm, Warhead Junction, their choice. They're deliberately 5-manning here. At any time, they could adjust their position right away, but they're giving up mid and bottom lane XP. Now they're a level down, but not a talent down, so they can take a full-on fight. So long as Brightwing, Tassadar, Tracer didn't come back, they feel safe. And they're pushing in on the keep here. Will this pay off? This was a very high-risk, high-reward play.
Here comes Lockjar in, dropping down the storms and the damage. Tempo Storm staying here, and the keep's about halfway down. Boss is still sieging on that. Tempo Storm are all in and being able to take out a keep. They saved their nuke for this point. They got the boss to the point. They are not walking away without a keep if they can help help it. They push back in one final time, and they bring down the keep 5 minutes into the game.
And look at that XP, Gilly. Now, of course, forts are pocket XP. If you kill all of each other's forts, you'll eventually be granted the same amount of experience from it. So getting it doesn't mean that you're ahead in XP forever. But temporary advantages and now catapults, that is so good. And with that XP that they have right now, with their own keep still being entirely safe, Tempo have made up the XP differential, the sacrifice they made. Giving up 2 lanes, getting a keep this early on, 5 minutes, it totally paid off. Tempo Storm is playing this map in a very special way. That was such a cool move.
It is the Tempo Storm style, the strategy that they have been using on Warhead Junction for a long time. Even setting up in a way as they retreat, they've already picked up 2 of the 4 warheads that have spawned on the battleground. Now, CE are closer to getting heroic abilities, but Tempo Storm are trying to zone it as best they can. Iron Skin was used to get a shield player into position to stall out. That's enough of a stall finally that CE are far too close to heroic abilities, and Tempo will have to be okay with the 2 nukes, but 2 is still fantastic as they retreat.
Yeah, exactly. Tempo Storm is asking, will you do your due diligence? Will you be cancelling out this 3rd nuke, or are we chewing off a little bit too much? They chew off too much, but they pull back in time and they don't lose any heroes here. Will now be looking to get their level up. But there's been an incredible concentration, a population density here for Tempo Storm. Sonya went to the top lane for just a bit, 1 wave, and then is coming back already. Tempo Storm groups up a lot. And this is how they're trying to solve the greater mobility that CE has by forcing really relevant map objective fights with all 5. Now going for Testadar, that's Dimensional Shift, 30-second cooldown.
Was used. Fury still chasing after heroic abilities there for Tempo Storm, and they were trying to see if they could keep some of the members of CE around so they could get a pick from that. Not seeing that. Instead, they will turn around and set focus to the boss in the bottom lane, ready for more siege.
Now Gilly, the only boss controls on the side of CE, they have Emerald Wind. That's it. So Tempo Storm needs to win a fight before killing the boss. This is very risky play. Somehow they need to jump in as Emerald Wind comes out.
There's the 1 nuke. Tempo Storm go forward all the way onto CE's side of this boss. Fury dives onto the point. The boss is down. Nukes flying out. Crystal Aegis has been used.
Tempo
Storm takes down Johanna, and they'll claim the boss.
Well controlled here by Tempo Storm, using the enemy's nuke against them, allowing the nuke of CE to finish off the boss, moving off the point. The jump in by Fury, Dwarf Toss on the boss point, and then their own nuke to solidify the deal. Tempo Storm, once again, the 2nd boss of the game with really good control.
Tempo Storm seems angry that they were put into the position where they had to fight for their lives 2 series in a row. They will get a 2nd boss, take down the fort. They only used 1 nuke, and as you see, 2 were used by CE at that point, and that's what I talk about. Tempo never overuses their nukes, and that lets them continue this push forward.
That's discipline right there. Only using 1 nuke, even in the most harrowing of situations. Having the confidence, knowing that that will be enough. You pointed it out, and it is so true. Using the 2nd nuke here to open up that keep wall. Bit of damage on the keep. And shouldn't overstay too much. Tempo have massive structural advantage. They have momentum. They have the only kills of the game. There's keep damage there. And they're also finally ahead in experience.
Now, as we reset the battleground somewhat, CE sending their global up to deal with the top lane and the catapults that have amassed there. We have seen this now for a 2nd time, this more auto-attack focused build from Tracer. Bullet time. We also see the Untouchable trying to build up stacks. What's been your experience with this build before?
I mean, it's great pub stomper. That means, of course, easy in open games where maybe some of the players are a little bit more random or lower rated. Every time you get a kill, you get bonus auto attack damage. And it can work at pro play as well, but the situation right now is that Tracer has 0 stacks on that talent.
No stacks yet. See if maybe Ricochet at 13, that was the pick before, is enough to change things around. That might be a stack. Psalm's pretty low. Crystal just used Fury jumping back and will spawn not. There it is. Vala is brought down, and there's your first stack for Tracer.
Not worth a heal, says June. Probably gonna die anyway. Had a full energy bar. I don't know if out of cooldown or maybe judging that it was going to be too much damage anyway. I think that's a fair assessment there in that situation. Still 1 nuke under control by Tempo. It's not all lost. Mossa nuke will be going over to CE. And we should continue to see this. CE even when they're down a little bit in XP, they should be able to get that back in short order. But for Tempo, it's all about these fights here at the boss.
This boss. When you see this early boss play, it sets your opponents on a timer, and now Tempo Storm are calling CE on that. CE may have gotten that kill on Bala, but this boss is dropping very quickly. How much is CE dedicate? Johanna's gone. She's gone. Nice. Tempo Storm with that. The Detainment Strike, the follow-up. They've got the synergy. They take down Wind, and that is going to guarantee this boss.
You know, Gilly, I have this feeling that only now CE says, oh, okay, this is entirely about the boss.
Yeah.
You've seen it once, you've seen it twice, but if you see where Tassadar Tracer were as this boss was started, if you do the math, they were all the way at the bottom lane of the map. I feel like it's only now dawning upon them, but the realization comes too late.
Yes, and that's part of what makes these events where we get all these metas together in one. Obviously, CE has done their homework, but they might not have expected this. Now we see the Emerald Wind going down. Pulse Bomb hits, immediate Crystal Aegis to try to stall that out. June is still alive.
The Lily heals are very real, but she's dropping low. Vala goes down there, but it's a quadruple kill. That went fast. And the boss is still 80%. There's still a nuke. Tempo Storm with 8 takedowns to 2, and with their special strategy, CE unable to adapt on time. The core gets nuked, and the core goes down. Tempo Storm take their first map victory against the Chinese team of CE.
Tempo very excited, super excited about that win. Som is on his feet, out of his chair, and the relief is palpable. It's gotta feel good for Tempo Storm. They lost the first game versus Deadly Kittens. They had already lost the whole series to CE. Finally now, they are one game away. They're the ones who are on top in the series.
Be careful though. This was a very strategic and well-practiced, well-honed, disciplined victory here on a special map, Warhead Junction. You cannot carry over what you've done here to the next battleground. A little joy is allotted, but you don't want to overdo it. It's still CE. They just lost 2-0 to them. They're going to be taken to a different map. We will see which one it's going to be.
Well, before that, let's check back in with the analysts and see what they thought about the NA flavor of Warhead Junction.
That's right, a strong victory there for Tempo Storm in game number 1, being able to kind of overcome the previous series that we saw from them against CE. But I think we were discussing it very, very heavily here whilst we were watching that game. At this level of competition, we're quite surprised that CE did not identify the strategy that was going to be coming along, Caldo.
Yeah, it was a little bit shocking that they didn't realize what was happening in the game. We said in the draft already that one of the advantages of Tempo Storm is control of bosses and of camps. And I can understand the impulse that as the first boss is taken, you're saying, hey, I'm getting value in 2 lanes.
Yeah.
You can take the boss, I don't mind that. But they didn't even react to the push towards the keep. It's absolutely fine to sacrificing the fort, but at that point already you could tell that they don't really understand how strong that boss is. So they lose the keep. And what blew my mind was that at the last boss, we have Tracer Tassadar showing at the bot lane. You have lost your top keep. Your opponent holds 2 nukes. You need to understand that you can't lose the top boss again. And then seeing with 2 globals in the game, they're non-globals at the bot lane. That just shows me they have no idea what's going on there.
That was the moment where I think everyone at the desk here realized I don't think CE gets it. Because there were some moments they made, I think that was somewhat coincidentally looked like, okay, maybe they know how to counter this. They got too greedy in that first push like you were talking about, and then they didn't have their heroes at the top. They didn't have vision either, and it was only after Johanna physically saw that they were at the boss did they actually rotate up. So Wind's like, hey guys, we need you up here, but they need to be going up earlier. And I agree with Grubby, though, at the same time. I think for this map, very good strategy, almost a little bit cheesy, you could say. But I think err on the side of caution if you're a Tempo Storm fan, because this series is definitely not over.
I just think they've never seen this. That's at least how it looked there. Like, we have seen it in North America, we have seen similar ideas in Europe, and just from the reaction that we had from them, I don't think they've ever seen this this idea behind Warhead Junction.
Skimmy?
I mean, it just felt once again accentuated by the ideas of this, you know, CE going for globals and the utilization, as you were saying. You know, Brightwing should be here, Illidan should be split pushing there, but there, like you said, times with Tracer and Tess were doing it, you're thinking, well, now you can't contest. Johanna face checking, has to use the Iron Skin very early on. gets popped just like that. But I mean, it was like the second boss control as well. They go in, you're thinking this is fantastic. There's a nuke on either side. They can actually try and make an attempt at this. The nuke comes down far too early. They try and go into the point. Fury says, thank you very much. Stun, the controller's there, double support ultimates. There's nothing they can do. The boss gets picked up for free. Once again, you've got that split pressure, which I was saying at the very start. You've got those pushing potentials. You got to keep it 5 minutes. You look for a second one later on. And map control really was all in favor of tempo.
All right, well, of course we have